The galaxy remembered everything. Every treaty, every war, every tiny trade agreement between the smallest moons, nothing was ever lost in the great records of the Galactic Archive. But there was one name missing. One entire species gone. No records, no images, no stories, only silence. To most people, it was nothing. But to a young alien historian named Roland, it was an itch in his mind that he could not ignore. Roland was not important. He was just a quiet researcher who spent most of his time reading old files in the deep levels of the archive. But one night, while searching for trade routes from 300 years ago, he found something strange. A gap, a jump from one file to the next, as if a page had been ripped from history. He frowned, checked again, and still nothing. Year was there, but no entries. No war, no peace deal, no record of any living world. It was impossible. He dug deeper, trying to pull up any cross-reference. That was when the system reacted. His screen went black. Single symbol appeared in the center, a blue and green flag with stars behind it. Roland did not recognize it, but when he tried to scan it, the archive security system flashed a warning. Access denied. Classified by Earth Authority. Roland had heard of Earth, of course. A small world on the edge of the Orion Arm. Humans. We're a young species compared to most of the galaxy, but dangerous in ways people rarely explained. Even so, why would they block an entire piece of history? He looked around. The archive hall was silent. Rows of glowing data pillars stood like frozen giants, holding the memories of a million civilizations. No one was watching him, at least. No one he could see. He tapped his console again, forcing it to reveal any related files. Something unexpected happened. The console unlocked a hidden folder. Inside was only one document. No title, no name. Just a date. Roland opened it. The screen flickered, and instead of text, an image formed grainy and old. It showed a star system with several planets and dozens of large ships in orbit. But the ships were strange. They were not human. The image lasted only a second before it vanished. A cold message appeared. Stop looking. Rollins? He shut down the console and leaned back, staring into the shadows between the archive shelves. Why would the system warn him? Why would it care? He tried to convince himself it was just a normal security lock. But in his gut, he knew it was not. This was different. He spent the next 2 days unable to think about anything else. The missing record haunted him. And then, on the third night, he found himself back at the same console. This time, he bypassed the archive's normal system and connected his own scanner. He searched for any record connected to the erased year. It took hours, but finally his scanner caught something, an old shipping manifest from a cargo fleet. It listed the names of several alien species, and one entry that was blank, as if the name had been cut out, and next to it, a human name, Commander Hale. Roland whispered the name to himself. He had never heard it before, but it sounded heavy, dangerous. He started pulling data on Hale. But every file was locked behind the same Earth security code. He sat in the dim glow of the console, feeling a cold weight in his stomach. A sound broke the silence. A faint, soft click, like a boot step on metal. Roland turned sharply, but the archive aisle was empty. He tried to tell himself it was nothing, but then another sound came, a slow, steady tapping, closer this time. He stood, scanning the shadows. "Who's there?" he called. No answer. The tapping stopped. The air in the archive felt heavier. He could hear his own heartbeat. Then, from behind one of the shelves, a voice spoke. Calm, low, human. You shouldn't be looking for them. Roland froze. His eyes darted toward the sound, but he saw no one. Who? His voice shook. The last ones who crossed us, the voice replied. There was a pause. They don't exist anymore. Not in your records. Not anywhere. Roland took a step back. What happened to them? The voice didn't answer directly. You want the truth? Go to the Orden Belt. But when you see what's there, leave. Don't dig deeper. Some history is buried for a reason. And then the footsteps faded into the darkness. Rowland stood alone in the vast archive, staring into the empty aisle where the voice had come from. He didn't know if he had just met a human in person or some kind of projection.
What?
But he knew one thing. Someone was watching him. And now he had a destination. That night, as he prepared his small research ship, Rowland kept hearing the humans' words. The last ones who crossed us. Who were they? What could be so terrible that the humans would erase not just their enemies, but the memory of their entire existence? When his ship lifted off from the archive station, the stars stretched out before him like endless questions. Somewhere in the Oorden Belt, the truth waited for him. But deep inside, a voice whispered a warning once he found it. There would be no going back. And far away, in a dark room on Earth, someone watched his departure on a screen. A woman with sharp eyes leaned back in her chair and said quietly, "Another one's going to look. Mark his file. You'll learn soon enough why we don't let the galaxy remember." The feed went dark. The hunt had begun. The Oorden Belt was a lonely stretch of frozen rock and drifting debris on the edge of known space. Most travelers avoided it, not because it was dangerous, but because it was empty. No mining, no stations, no reason to go. But Rowland had a reason. It came in the form of a voice that refused to leave his mind. His ship emerged from hyperspace with a soft shudder. The belt spread out before him like a shattered necklace of ice and stone, the weak light of a distant star catching on the jagged surfaces. His scanners hummed to life, sweeping through the asteroids. At first, there was nothing, just the quiet hum of empty space. Then, a faint echo appeared on the display. It was a signal. Old, weak, almost dead. But it was there. Rowland adjusted course, weaving through drifting rocks the size of cities. The signal grew stronger, its tone steady and deliberate like a heartbeat. In the void, tried to decode it, but it wasn't any language he knew. And then, buried under the static, came a few sharp words in clear galactic common. "Leave now. This is your only warning." His spines bristled. That was the same voice from the archive. He hesitated, hands hovering over the controls. Every instinct told him to turn back, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. He followed the signal deeper into the belt until something caught his eye, a shape hidden in the shadow of a massive asteroid. At first, he thought it was just another rock, but as his ship drifted closer, its lines became too sharp, too precise. Metal, not stone. A station half buried in the asteroid's surface. Its hull was painted in dull gray, but faint markings were still visible, the blue and green flag with stars behind it. Earth's flag? Rowland's mouth went dry. He hailed the station, but no answer came. Instead, his comm panel flashed with a new message. "Dock, and you will regret it." For a long moment, he sat frozen. Then, slowly, he began the docking sequence. The clamps locked into place with a deep metallic thud. The station's airlock opened into darkness. His steps echoed as he entered, the stale air smelling faintly of oil and something burnt. He moved cautiously, scanning every corner. The corridors were narrow, the walls lined with closed doors. Its panels were dark, but occasionally, a faint red light pulsed like the slow breathing of something sleeping. Then he heard it. Low hum, coming from deeper inside. He followed the sound until he reached a wide chamber. At its center stood a huge table covered in holographic projections. And in the middle of those projections was a map, the same star system he had seen. In the archive image, only this time, it was covered in red markers. Dozens. Each one labeled with a name. All the names were alien species he recognized, except one. That one was just blank, replaced by a long dash. "You don't listen well," a voice said behind him. Rowland spun around. A human stood in the doorway, tall, wearing black armor with no insignia. Their face was calm, almost bored, but their eyes were sharp enough to cut through him. "I'm looking for the truth," Rowland said. The human stepped closer, the sound of their boots heavy in the still air. "The truth," they repeated, as if testing the word. "The truth is simple. They crossed us. We erased them. That's all." "Who were they?" Rowland asked. The human's expression didn't change. "It doesn't matter." What matters is that you understand the warning. Keep digging, and you'll meet the same end. Rowland swallowed hard. You're saying you'd kill me? The human smiled faintly, but it wasn't a kind smile. Kill you? No, we'd do something worse. We'd make it so you never existed in the first place, just like them. The room seemed colder. Before Rowland could respond, the human tapped their wrist device. The holographic map vanished, the lights dimmed, and the hum in the walls faded. Go home, historian. Forget this place. Forget us. And then, without waiting for an answer, they walked away, leaving Rowland alone in the silent station. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where the map had been. Then he turned back toward his ship. He knew he should leave. He knew it was the smart choice. But deep inside, the question was still there. A question that would not die. Who were they? And why did humans fear their memory so much? Rowland left the hidden station in the Orden Belt with the human's warning still echoing in his mind. His ship slipped into the black, leaving the cold asteroid shadows behind. He told himself he would stop, that he would return to his quiet life in the archive. But the silence of space gave him too much time to think. The human's words, "We'd make it so you never existed," were not a threat someone made lightly. That was power beyond weapons. That was power over reality itself. For the first day of travel, nothing happened. The stars passed quietly outside his viewports. The hum of his engines was steady. But then, somewhere deep in the ship, a faint noise began. At first, it was just static over the soft, harmless. Then, late in his second night alone, the static changed. It became a sound like heavy breathing, followed by sharp bursts, pop-pop like weapons fire. Rowland froze at his console. He checked every sensor, every channel. The signal wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside his own ship. He listened. The breathing grew faster. Screams joined the gunfire, alien voices, high and panicked. The sounds of metal tearing, of explosions shaking the air. And then, through the chaos, a deep voice cut in, calm and certain. Operation Final Silence. Complete. The line went. Dead. Rowland sat motionless, his spines trembling. He didn't know what he had just heard, but it felt real. Too real. He replayed the recording again and again, but each time it grew shorter, pieces vanishing like water draining away. By the fifth replay, all that was left was silence. He didn't sleep that night. The next day, decided to trace the signal. His ship's system pointed him toward a neglected corner of the galaxy, a cluster of abandoned trade worlds.
Ow!
Long since stripped of value, the route took him past burned-out satellites and half-collapsed stations, relics of civilizations that had fallen centuries ago. As he approached the largest of these worlds, his scanners picked up faint life signs. They were weak, scattered like embers in a dying fire. Most were deep in the planet's shadows, hiding from whatever still roamed the surface. But one signal stood out stronger, steadier, moving slowly toward an old industrial zone. Rowland landed near the coordinates and stepped out into the stale air. The sky was a dusty brown, the sun a pale ghost behind thick clouds. Buildings leaned against each other like broken teeth. He heard no voices, no wind, only the crunch of debris under his boots. He found the source of the signal in an alley between two collapsed factories. A figure sat on the ground, leaning against the wall. At first, Rowland thought they were dead. Then their eyes opened sharp, golden, watching him with suspicion. They were aliens, but of a kind Rowland had never seen before. Their skin was marked with deep scars, some old and pale, others fresh and raw. Pieces of metal seemed to be fused into their flesh, as if they had been patched together after terrible wounds. "You're not from here," the stranger said, their voice low and rough. "I'm looking for someone," Rowland replied. "Someone. Who remembers a species the humans erased?" The stranger's gaze sharpened. "Why?" "Because they're gone from every record," Rowland said. "I found a gap in history. I want to know why." The stranger laughed once, bitter and hollow. "You want to know? Then hear this: your records are not broken. They were cleaned. We were cleaned. My people ruled fleets, worlds, whole star sectors. We thought the humans were a small species, weak, primitive. We were wrong.
Nice.
They leaned forward, their golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. We started the war. They finished it. And they didn't just kill us. They erased us. Every planet, every city, every name. Even our corpses. Gone. Roland felt the cold creep up his spine. How did you survive? The stranger's expression darkened. I didn't. Not really. They left me alive because they wanted one witness. Someone to see what they could do. Someone to spread the fear if anyone dared to remember. They fell silent, staring past Roland as if seeing something far away. Then they said quietly, "If you keep looking, historian, you'll end like my people. Forgotten. Nothing left but silence." A faint sound drifted through the alley, then metal on stone, slow and deliberate. The stranger's eyes widened. They found you already. Roland turned toward the sound, but the alley was empty. Empty. For now, Roland followed the survivor through the ruins, their footsteps quick and quiet. The air was heavy with dust, and every sound seemed too loud in the stillness. They didn't speak until they reached a collapsed warehouse, its roof half caved in, letting in shafts of pale light. Inside, the survivor motioned for Roland to sit. "You want to understand?" the survivor said, their voice low. "Then forget the grand battles you've heard about in other wars. Humans don't fight like that. They don't come in with banners and announcements. They don't give you a chance to prepare. They arrive like a shadow, and when they leave, there's nothing left." Roland leaned forward, but they were a young species. How could they? The survivor cut him off with a sharp look. "They didn't fight with more ships, they fought with more thought. First, they didn't attack our fleets, they attacked our minds. Communications went dark in a single night. Our leaders sent orders, but no one received them. Our colonies called for help, but their cries never reached us. They paused, their golden eyes reflecting the dim light. And then, the disappearances started. Not battles. Disappearances. Entire stations vanished. No distress signals, no survivors, no wreckage. At first we thought it was some strange natural disaster. But then we found the pattern of remissing sight had been visited by a human ship in the days before it went silent. Roland felt his chest tighten. What kind of ships? The survivors shook their head. Not warships. Small, unmarked. They looked like traders or research craft. But inside, they carried soldiers who could move without being seen. One team could destroy an entire command center before anyone knew they were there. We called them ghosts. They shifted, their scars catching the light. The humans learned our patterns. They knew when our commanders met. They struck in the middle of meetings, wiping out leadership in seconds. Without orders, our fleets drifted, blind and confused. By the time we realized what was happening, they'd already taken our shipyards. No more reinforcements, no repairs. The war was over before most of us even knew it had begun. Roland's mind raced. But there must have been some final stand, some last chance. The survivor's expression hardened. There was. And I was there. We gathered what was left of our fleet, every ship, every fighter. We hid in a nebula dense enough to block sensors. We thought we were safe. They looked away, their voice growing quieter. The humans were already there, waiting, and they didn't come to offer surrender. They gripped the edge of the table so tightly the metal groaned under their claws. They brought a weapon we had never seen. It didn't tear our ships apart. It didn't set them on fire. It turned them into nothing. Not debris. Not even dust. Just gone. The space where we had been was empty, as if we'd never existed. Roland swallowed. That's how they erased you from the records. The survivor nodded slowly. The council didn't resist. They were told, erase our name, erase every record, or share our fate. And the council agreed. No one would risk being next. Silence hung between them for a long moment. Then the survivor leaned closer. I am the last. And now you know why there are no stories, no ruins, no history. Humans don't just win wars, they make the galaxy forget the war ever happened. Roland felt the weight of the words settle over him. "Why are you telling me this?" "'Cause," the survivor said, glancing toward the broken doorway. "You're already marked. You've spoken to me." "That's enough for them to come." Roland stiffened. "They can't know they already do," the survivor interrupted. "They always know." Somewhere outside, there was a faint hum. Not the wind, not debris shifting. It was the deep, low vibration of engines, small, fast, and coming closer. The survivor's hand went to a concealed weapon. "When you want to. Live, historian. You leave now, and you never come back." Roland hesitated, torn between fear and the burning need for answers. But when the hum grew louder, vibrating through the floor, he knew he had no choice. He turned and ran back toward his ship, the sound of the survivor's voice following him. "Remember, these humans are patient. If they want you gone, they'll wait until you think you're safe. Then they'll erase you too." Roland didn't sleep for 2 cycles after leaving the ruined world. The survivor's words clawed at his thoughts. But worse was the feeling that followed him everywhere, the sense of being watched. He had left the system quickly, changing course 3 times, even slipping through asteroid fields to throw off any pursuit. But the sensation never faded. He began studying the fragments of data he had collected. Most of it was corrupted, but here and there, pieces remained frozen transmissions, complete logs, strange bursts of encrypted code. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The humans hadn't just fought a war. They had built a system for war, one unlike anything Roland had seen before. First came silence. The moment they targeted a world or station, communications would vanish. Not jammed, not blocked, simply gone. It was as if the entire network for that area had never existed. Records of past messages vanished too, leaving no trace anything had ever been sent. Then came the ghosts. Small teams, always small, who slipped into enemy territory unnoticed. They struck with precision, hitting command hubs, leadership centers, manufacturing cores. Every strike ended the same way, no witnesses left alive. And finally came the cleansing. Not fleets in open combat, but surgical destruction. Entire colonies and stations removed from space itself. Whatever weapon they used left nothing to salvage, not even wreckage to study. The more Roland pieced together, the more he understood why the survivor had called it a shadow war. There were no glorious victories for the humans to boast about, no wreckage for historians to study, no monuments to battles. There was only the absence of what had once been end, the unshakable fear left behind. On his 4th day of travel, he picked up something strange on his long-range sensors. A faint blip, far behind him. Too small for a warship, too fast for a cargo vessel. The readings shifted constantly, as though the object didn't want to be tracked. Roland's spines stiffened. He changed course. The blip followed. He killed his engines, letting his ship drift among the cold shadows of a dead moon. The blip vanished. For a moment he thought maybe he had shaken it. But then his proximity alarm went off a single, sharp tone. Roland turned toward the viewport. A ship hovered in the distance, small, unmarked. Its hull was matte black, eating the light around it. No running lights, no visible weapons. But he knew, without a doubt, it was human. He didn't wait to see if it would hail him. He jumped to hyperspace, his ship rattling from the sudden burst of speed. Even as the stars stretched into lines, he felt certain the black ship would still be there, waiting when he stopped. 2 days later, he found what he was looking for, perhaps what the humans wanted him to find. A derelict station floating in deep space. Its design was alien, but the damage was unmistakable. Clean, surgical, precise. No debris drifted nearby. No sign of life. Just a dead shell. Inside, the air was thin and bitter. His boots echoed through long, empty corridors. Every surface was scorched smooth, as if whatever weapon had hit this place had erased more than just metal. It had erased the memory of what had been here. In the main control room, he found a single terminal still powered. The screen flickered to life, showing a list of coordinates. Most were marked cleared. Only one entry had no mark. It was a location in the outer rim deep, far and forgotten. Rowland stared at it. The smart thing would be to erase the data and run as far from human space as possible. But curiosity, reckless and burning, made his decision for him. He copied the coordinates, and behind him, in the shadows of the control room, something moved. Rowland didn't notice the movement at first. He was too focused on the coordinates glowing on the terminal. But then a faint sound reached him, a soft, deliberate step. Not the random creak of a dead station, but the careful movement of someone avoiding noise. He turned slowly. The room was dim, the only light coming from the terminal's pale glow. In the corner, a figure stood half hidden in shadow. It was a human, not armored, not armed at least, not visibly. Their clothing was dark and simple, their expression calm, but their eyes downed. Their eyes carried the same cold stillness as the human in the Orden Belt station. "You keep walking into places you shouldn't," the human said quietly. "And now you've taken something you really shouldn't have." Ryland's throat was dry. "Were they?" The human tilted their head. "The ones who crossed us. They don't matter. They're gone." Rowland stepped forward. "They matter to me." For a moment, the humans studied him. Then, to his surprise, they said, "Fine. You want to know? Ask the one who was there. You've already met him." "The survivor?" Rowland asked. A faint nod. "Go back to him. He'll tell you about the last day." The human turned to leave, but paused in the doorway. "When you hear it, you'll understand why we erased them. And why we'll erase you too, if you keep going." The figure vanished down the corridor, silent as mist. Rowland left the derelict behind and returned to the ruined world where he had first met the scarred alien. The survivor was waiting in the same alley, leaning on the wall like they'd known. Rowland would return. "You found something," the survivor said. "Coordinates," Rowland replied. "But the human said you could tell me what happened there. The last stand." The survivor's eyes narrowed. "You really want to hear it?" Rowland nodded. The survivor took a long breath, then began. "We had gathered our last fleet in the Hoskin Nebula. Hundreds of ships, all hidden in the swirling gas. Our plan was simple: strike the humans first. Hard enough to make them back off. We thought they'd hesitate if we bled them badly enough." They shook their heads slowly. "We were wrong. We were already in the nebula. They didn't come. Enforced just a single formation of ships, smaller than ours. But they didn't attack immediately. They just waited." Rowland frowned. "Waited for what?" "For us to believe we were safe." The survivor's voice dropped lower. "Then they deployed it. I don't know if it was a weapon or something older, something they'd found, but when it fired, space itself rippled. Our sensors went blind, and our ships, they didn't explode. They didn't burn. They just vanished. Every atom, every trace gone." Rowland felt his chest tighten. "Nothing left?" "Not even dust," the survivor whispered. The nebula clouds closed over the empty space where our fleet had been. It was like we were never there at all. They looked at Rowland with a grim expression. "That's why you'll never find wreckage. That's why no one remembers. They didn't just kill us. They deleted us." Rowland was silent for a long time. Finally he asked, "And those coordinates, is that where they used it?" The survivor nodded. "Yes, but if you go there, historian, you won't come back. They still watch it always." Rowland didn't answer, just turned, walking back toward his ship with the coordinates burning in his mind. Behind him, the survivor called out one last warning. "Humans aren't feared because they win wars. They're feared because when they decide you're gone for everyone." Rowland had seen dead worlds before. He had walked the ruins of cities shattered by war, crossed the silent decks of derelict ships. But the erase system was different. From the moment his ship dropped out of hyperspace, he felt an absence that went beyond silence. The stars themselves seemed dimmer here, as if the light had been thinned. His sensors struggled, flickering with static as he moved toward the coordinates. The system had several planets, but none registered on his scanners. It was as if they weren't there at all. He could see faint outlines with his eyes, but the instruments returned nothing. No mass readings, no atmospheric data, no history. When he approached the coordinates, He understood why the survivor had called it the last stand. This was a battlefield where nothing remained. No wreckage, no drifting metal, not even the smallest trace of dust. It was an emptiness that felt unnatural. His ship's systems began to glitch. Readouts scrambled, navigation alarms flared for no reason. In the middle of the chaos, his cum crackled to life with a voice he recognized immediately. "You shouldn't have come here, historian." It was the human from the derelict station. .com. Controlled, almost bored. Rowland gripped the console. "I came for the truth." "You've already heard it," the human replied. "But you don't believe it. You think there's something more to find." "There isn't." "Then why guard this place?" Rowland demanded. A pause, then the voice returned colder. "Because some things must stay buried. If you carry this knowledge home, it spreads. And if it spreads, it will need to be erased again, entirely." Rowland's sensors pinged multiple contacts. He turned to see them emerging from the void. Small, black human ships, their surfaces swallowing the starlight. No markings, no signals, moving with terrifying precision. They surrounded him without a word. "This is your final warning," the voice said. "Turn back now, and you live. Keep going, and you will join them." For a moment, Rowland hesitated. He could run, could return to the archive, and pretend none of this ever happened. But then he remembered the survivors' scars, the war. That had been stolen from history, entire people who had been made to vanish. He pushed the throttle forward. Immediately, the human ships moved. They didn't fire, they didn't even seem to chase him. Instead, space ahead of him began to shimmer, the same way the survivor had described in the nebula. The blackness rippled, bending like water around an unseen force. Every alarm on his ship screamed at once. His engine stuttered. The shimmer grew wider, deeper, until it swallowed the stars ahead. For a heartbeat, Rowland thought he was about to die. But then it stopped. The ripple faded. The human ships withdrew. "You're lucky," the voice said quietly over the cum. "We've decided to let you carry the warning home. It's all you get." The ships vanished back into the void, leaving Rowland alone. But he knew they could have erased him in an instant. And he knew their mercy was deliberate, because a warning carried by a living witness was sometimes more powerful than a dead one. He set a course back to the archive. But deep inside, he understood the truth they hadn't spared him out of kindness. They had spared him because they knew exactly what fear could do. End ship limped into dock at the Grand Archive. He expected the bustle of scholars, the quiet hum of recorders, the familiar scent of old paper and polished metal. Instead, the station felt wrong, too quiet, too still. As he stepped into the main hall, his stomach turned. Stood empty. The vast walls that once glowed with 1,000 years of galactic history now showed nothing but black glass. The servers hummed softly, but there was no data left. He rushed to his private quarters, his pulse pounding. The door slid open, and someone was sitting in the dark. It was a human, same voice from the erase system, now given a face. Their expression was unreadable, neither hostile nor friendly, just patient. "You made it back," the human said, as if it had always been certain. "What have you done?" Rowland demanded, his voice shaking. "Cleaned up," the human replied simply. "The records you carried were dangerous. Now, they're gone. You're the only record left." Rowland stepped forward, fists clenched. "I am a historian." "My work, your work," the human interrupted, "almost started the same war we ended." The human rose from the chair, walking toward him slowly. "You want to know why we erased them? Why no one remembers their name?" Rowland didn't answer. "They crossed us," the human said, their voice low and final. "They believed they could harm us and survive. We made sure they didn't. Not just their fleets. Not just their cities. Every trace. Every whisper. We erased them so completely that even their enemies forgot they existed." Rowland swallowed hard. "That's not justice." The human's gaze locked onto his. "It's survival." It stopped. A step away from him. "Here's the truth. Historian, Every species thinks they understand war. They think it's about killing armies. But war is about ending possibilities. We don't just win wars, we close doors that can never be opened. Again, silence filled the room. Finally, the human turned to leave. Tell your people what you saw, if you wish. They won't believe you, and even if they do, they'll only remember the fear. The door slid shut behind them. Rowland stood alone in the darkness, the empty archive echoing around him. And for the first time in his life, he understood what true erasure meant: not the death of bodies, but the death of memory itself. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, he knew the humans were watching, making sure no one dared cross them again.